Well, welcome back. Joining us on the program this week, we're delighted to have Mr. Dan Nataf, Director of the Center for the Study of Local Issues, on the program today. Mr. Nataf, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Now, you come from the Anne Arundel Community College, the Arnold campus. That's
right.
where the office is located.
Exactly right.
Talk to us all about the Center for the Study of Local Issues.
Well, the center was created back in the late 70s, and by the early 80s, we were known as the entity that does a survey of the public of the Anne Arundel County, public residents 18 or over. And we've been doing that every semester. We use it as a learning tool for students. We recruit the students out of usually social science classes. They either get extra credit or service learning or something. There's always an inducement for them to participate. And then they spend 1, 2, or 3 nights with us, calling all of you on the phone and getting hung up on with regularity.
Did you hang up on them, Kristen?
I didn't hang up.
You probably did. You probably didn't even, you filtered your call and didn't even know they were calling, right? But
Right.
we come in as Anne Arundel Community College. We'll call you usually between 6 o'clock and 8:45. And then the surveys usually last around 10 minutes once we get it started. And so, again, we've been doing this for years and years. I have a website where you can get all the results since I came on in 1995. We have press releases that are issued after the results are analyzed and known. And then we post all of those on the website. And, of course, we send them off to our good pals at the Capitol, and anybody else will report. There are a lot of, we have a long mailing list, and they all get a copy of the results when it's there.
Very good. And
Yeah.
tell us about the next poll that you're conducting.
The next poll will be out in the field March 27th and be then through the rest of that week, Monday through Thursday. The poll will be focusing on a series of things. It's an ambitious poll. I really hope people don't hang up on us.
That's why you're here today.
Yes,
that's our message.
to goad
Do not
people
hang
into
up
not hanging up
on the college.
But,
We're trying
yeah.
to get good answers.
Well, or at least accurate answers. Some part of our survey is regularly asked. In other words, we have a question: what is the most important problem facing residents of Anne Arundel County? It's an open-ended question, very first question, because we don't want to put people in some kind of state of mind about crime or something and then ask that question. So we just open-end it. We get about 90% who can come up with something, and the students then code it. I give them some pre-coded categories, and so we have those other questions that are just used for benchmarking, right? So we sort of look at tendencies, job approval for executives, or rate economic conditions, or right or wrong direction. We do this for nation, state, and county, and so we can compare the different levels and their gyrations over time. And then at the end, we have a demographic section so we can find out more about the nature of the respondent himself or herself.
Sure.
And right in the middle is what varies from time to time. So this time, our focus will be, first of all, on trying to test some of the ideas that are coming out of the Trump administration. We are obviously kind of interested in the fact that Hillary Clinton beat Trump in Anne Arundel County, which is not a particularly expected outcome. So there was some question as well, how popular are the things that he's promulgating now? There's a lot of things that indirectly or directly affect Anne Arundel County in just a general area. So, a hiring freeze on non-military personnel, that could dramatically affect people in the area. Or big cutbacks in EPA funding, that too could dramatically affect water quality and bay restoration efforts. So we ask some questions like that are clearly impactful to the area, and others that are more general attitudes, building the wall or deportation of immigrants, and something about climate change and the regulatory framework and whether that should be cut back and so forth and so on. So we start with that, and then we move on to some more state and local questions. So we ask questions about sort of the state as, I look for, kind of controversial issues. There's been a proposition to increase the amount of funding that would go to low-income students to help them go to private schools. So that's, it's kind of a cleavage issue. It's just let's see how people relate to that. We have some other issues like whether fracking should be banned. And so we'll see how the public I'd be interested in how aware they are, how much they know about fracking. But
right.
For the people who do know, they usually polarize one way or another. And so it'd be interesting to see how that works out. We have some questions about Anne Arundel County kind of attitudes. Like there was one question about whether or not people should be allowed to go swimming in all county-owned beaches. And so that isn't currently possible at all beaches, and so we'll see whether there's an attitude that, well, leave things just as they are, or should we kind of broaden that access and see where that goes. There's another question about limiting sewer availability in rural areas and whether people are interested in doing that as a way of kind of differentiating high growth, low growth areas, right?
It seems like every year in the study there's one gem that kind of sticks out. I can remember, I'm not sure, I'm going in years instead of in, I know you do it twice a year, but there was one time when you did the poll and the top issue question swung from, I think, growth and development to crime, and crime was the heroin issue, really, is what people were talking about. And I remember it was a really big swing, and it was kind of like, what happened here? And it gives you something to kind of
we've been tracking, I mean, the crime, drugs, we kind of combined it and reported together. It's now, recently, it's been the most important issue.
No question.
And so, you know, during the Great Recession, the economy was at like 50%, right? Everybody would say the economy in some form. But then that's gone down dramatically now. It's hardly registers double digits.
Are there any questions in this poll coming up that you're kind of watching that you think might be the one that kind of is a
what's the headline, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I somehow I think...
No, not necessarily that, but you know, which one are you most intrigued by what you think the answer will be?
You know, there are a lot of them that are out there. All that I mentioned are all intriguing. I think it'll be interesting, just as a curiosity, see the job approval numbers for the executives, for the president, the governor, and the county exec.
And how they match up or not.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's always surprising to me is that, you know, almost everybody has an opinion about the president. Most people have an opinion about the governor. The county exec's no opinion number is almost as high as have an opinion number.
Right.
And so there's a general lack of connection in some way between the kind of local level of government. They just can't figure out who the guy is and what's he doing and how am I even supposed to monitor that? You know, it's I've always thought about it. It's if you're a person who watches TV and gets your news,
you're not going to
you know, how much time are you going to give to each of the 24 jurisdictions in Maryland?
Right.
You know? So you're going to give attention to the state because it's just, you know, governor and legislature, that's easy. And the national stuff's always, we're inundated.
I bet you more people know who the president is today than they did 4 years ago. Just because Trump is such a media phenomenon, I bet you more people know who the president is.
Well, 4 years ago, Obama was going in for re-election, so I think that he had universal name.
But you know, they do this man on the street and people don't know who the president is or where Washington, D.C. is and you know, stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think knowing basic information like that is much more likely than knowing sort of any detail about policy.
Right.
So we're having a question there, you know, are you likely to support or oppose the Republican plan to replace the ACA, Obamacare? How many people really know what's in either plan?
Right.
You know, and so it's a diffuse attitude. You're tapping, that's what they're going to give you. Some are policy wonks, most are not. And so they're going to read it through their ideology and their partisanship, and mostly that. Right. So
I had an opportunity, I was lucky enough to be included in your planning for the poll.
That's right.
And something you said stuck out to me about polling, the state of polling today, in that people don't have landline telephones anymore. They don't use their landline, and how that affects the results you get and how that affects how you conduct a poll.
Right.
Should we, whether it's a Pew poll or a CSLI poll, should we kind of be more skeptical of polling because of the limitations of it, or?
I think you should. I think the challenge now is trying to accommodate cell phones because landlines are easy. I call a landline, it rings in your house, I know where you are, and you're not driving, you're not at a meeting, you're not in a restaurant.
You're not distracted.
You're not on a do not call list.
You're just at home. Yeah, well, you might be, but we're exempted, so we don't care. But the point is that you're at home and you're in a safe environment to carry on for a few minutes. With cell phones, you know, you might be at home too, but you're going to go and monitor your call. The people who have your cell phone number are people you know and with whom you want to speak. When you see something come up and it says Anne Arundel Community College, what are you going to do? You're going to answer it?
What's the thought in the pollster community on how you fix this?
There is no fix. I mean, what has happened? There's been an erosion of the number of telephone polls and an increase in number of online polls.
Okay.
The problem with online polls is how do you get the email addresses or people to solicit them to participate? That's the challenge, because it's not like white pages or even random digit dial where the computer makes up numbers, assuming that there's a number.
And how do you know if they're registered voters? Not that that's a requirement you use. How do you know if they're the person they claim to be? How do you know if they're not taking the poll 5 times?
But it is possible to take the poll online.
Yes.
It is possible. What we do is we ask people at the end of the phone interview whether they'd like to give us their email address.
Oh, very
and we explain that this is for future polling. And we get about 40% or so that do. And so we have been able to build up almost a couple thousand now email addresses. The sad truth is, though, is that even though they've opted in, and they've just been through the survey, so they have the patience to do that, we still only get 10% or so that will participate when solicited. And so
again, that's why we're here.
It's
Right.
gross.
Because we are urging
Make your
people,
voices
do not
heard.
hang up, answer the phone,
Right.
do not hang up on them, and hey, you can take the poll online. How do they do that?
Well, unfortunately,
you can't divulge?
They can't opt in by volunteering. It's a subset of the people we call.
Yeah, you have to provide an
And
email.
so, it's kind of the randomization occurs through the calling
Oh, so it
method,
hurts the
methodology.
randomization if people
yes,
just
that's
sign
the
up.
problem. They can't just, because then who knows? Everybody who's zealous about some topic will go, I want to sign up for that. And then I got a lot of them, and I'm trying to represent the broad public as it is, not with clusters of zealots about some topic. And so,
Well, that
has
gives
to
me
be
an
a method.
excuse. If I don't like something your poll found, I can just say, well, he got people online, so you protected against that.
Online
Well
people
done.
are a little different than phone people because they tend to be richer, more educated, and whiter. And
I think
so-
you're a little more calculated in your response too when you're online taking a poll rather than being caught in the moment.
And you
on a
can
phone.
Google stuff.
Yes,
Right.
I mean you can spend half an hour on the poll. There's
Exactly.
no limit. And so you can be highly informed if you don't know what fracking is. Boom, you're going to look it up
Right,
and say,
and then
there it is. You have this informed opinion rather than
actually
I'm at dinner. Come on, let's hurry up kind of opinion. So
Right. What's a
Very
frack?
good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, explaining how the polling works, explaining about
pleasure.
your next poll. We really appreciate it, Mr. Nataf. And we're also going to encourage folks out there, if you see Anne Arundel County Community College pop up on your caller ID, don't hang up. Simply say that you want to take the poll online.
Even if
Provide an
even
email.
if they want you to sign up for a class, sign
Right,
up
we
for the
want you
class.
to make your voice heard. We value your opinion. So thank you for all you're doing regarding
My
local
pleasure.
issues in our
Thank you.
county.
Yeah.
And come back on whenever
I will.
you'd like with some
Well,
fresh
next
news.
after we have results, you can invite me back, and
That'd
That'd be
great.
wonderful. We'll share the
find out.
results of
That's
this
right.
poll. I like
There we
that.
go.
Very good.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back with more Week in Review right after this. Don't go anywhere.